Hello everyone, many thanks for always finding time to be on Ebra TV. I'm Linda Alele Mathambo, and today we have an incredible topic. I am not so sure whether I should call it incredible or not or anything, but then you will be the judge. We are talking about the rise of atheism in Kenya. You know, we have our kids, we have our children, the youths opting to be atheists, you know, thinking that, okay, well, this religion thing is too much of a burden for them. And we're having a question as to why is this happening? And is it really that we should stick to religion, or maybe get to listen to what these atheists have to say? And indeed, that's the reason why today we're having two atheists on set. You need to meet them. We've always known Harrison Mumia. He's the guy. I'm surprised there's a lady, a pretty lady, and someone just asked her, with all this beauty, and you want to say there's no God? You do not believe that someone gave you all this beauty, an extreme supernatural being? And anyway, of course, the last person who will also be on set is a person who studied theology. And I want these two people right here to convince this other person to cross to their side, or vice versa. So Karibu Sada, we have Harrison Mumia right next to me. And of course, right next to Harrison is Kate Wambogo. And she is a musician. Harrison is the president of the atheist, body in Kenya. And finally, we have Kennedy Diva, who is a theology. He's done a specialist in that. So Karibuni Sana, many thanks for finding time to be here with us.
Thank you very much.
And of course, we'll go straight to you. I met Harrison, and I was thinking, the first time I heard of him via internet and all that, I was thinking this person might not be in their senses, in their right senses. But meeting him, he's living a normal life. He's a normal person. He's a straightforward person. And I was wondering, Harrison, I mean, why do you decide? Why on earth would you decide that there's no supreme being? There's no God?
There's no supreme being because there's no supreme being.
All right.
Yeah. So I think what was happening in my time when I was a Christian is that I had the wrong position, and this position was because it was pumped into me when I was growing up. I think this happens a lot in this country and in most religious countries. Fortunately for me, I was able to dig deeper into the whole question of God, the whole question of existence, the whole question of meaning, the whole question of life after death. And there was no evidence, there was nothing demonstrating that we are under any supernatural phenomenon as human
you digged
beings.
into Christianity. Let me get this right. You did into Christianity alone. There are people who are Muslims.
It turns out I actually digged into quite a number of religions because remember, religion is not, Christianity is only about 2,000, 4,000, 3,000 years ago.
All right.
And not the Christianity we know today. We had different shapes of Christianity, and these have evolved over a period of time. But remember, there were religions which predated Christianity and even Islam. And what is happening and what people do not know is that Christianity and Islam as we know today have precedents. They are religions they borrowed from. The whole question of a virgin birth, for example, of Jesus Christ, the whole question of dying and resurrecting, these are stories that existed in pre-Christian time. And what happened is, of course, they were borrowed and then marketed and modeled, and now we have what we call the Christian faith. But we also know that in Africa, we did not have Christianity. About 200 years ago is when we started seeing missionaries coming and preaching about God. And even the way they were doing it, it was spreading in such different forms. If you go to Western Province, we have so many splinter churches that all profess, Jesus and so on, and the Bible, but they spread in different ways, which tells you that the whole question of religion is just about how it arrived to, how it was borrowed, where it was borrowed from, how it came to Africa, and how it just spread in Africa.
But I think if this thing is in a position to spread, and deeply and get roots down the ground, then it clearly means that at some point it has some truth. And if not some truth, there is a supernatural power that is driving this thing to a point that it's going down to the people and, getting roots. But anyway, we're going to come back to that. I'm coming to you. I'll ask the same thing, and of course to the theology guy down there who has facts from the Bible, I would say, of course not in the Christian basis. I'll ask the very same question that somebody asked you. With all this beauty, you just want to believe that it came out from, I don't know, nowhere? There's no supernatural thing that triggered, all this beauty, and to a point, why is it that you decided I'm not going to focus in, believing in God or something?
Well, thank you very much for the compliment, first of all. I believe that I was not created by God, as I'd been brought up to believe all those years. And I've always been a very inquisitive child. Even while growing up, I wanted to read, and I wanted to question. In Sunday school, I was brought up a Christian, and so I had all these very strong questions that I kept asking my elders and the teachers and everyone, and no one seemed to have any answer that was substantial, that was satisfying my...
Supposing you got an answer that is satisfying to you, like today.
Absolutely. If I got evidence that is, you know, nice evidence that God exists, he actually maybe pops up and tells me, hey, Kate, I'm here, I am totally and absolutely going to believe in him.
Really? Don't you
Absolutely.
think it's so much trouble for you trying to look for this thing? Because for him, it's 100%. No evidence will ever come. You are in this state of atheism, but you kind of feel like if at some point in time, you know, if you ask him, let me just go to him directly, you know, if you ask him about Christianity, something to do with that, he's confident, he's 101% sure that he's not going to get, well, let me not speak for him. Tell us something,
Yeah, thank you.
Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Linda, for hosting us today. What I can say, Linda, today you are, as in, this is a case of two people holding the same vessels, but one is holding an empty vessel. The other one is holding a vessel which has water. When you call these people to come forth and give a testimony, of course, the one holding a vessel that is empty will only talk of emptiness and void. The one holding the vessel with water will give a testimony of the water. I want to draw an example. All of us, we know that we were at one point in our mother's womb. While we were in our mother's womb, as in our mind and our heart was so small that it could not comprehend about our mother. She never existed while we were still in the womb. True or false?
True.
So until this kid is born, then he grows up, he realizes, yes, mother exists and I was once in, but there's no memory of this kid while in the womb.
What do you say about that?
So, just to finish, right now, my brother, mommy, and my sister, spiritually, they are not, as in they are still under the bond of darkness. They are still in the womb.
Yeah, you're still in the
they
womb.
have to be, that's why we use
Layman's
the word born again is used 3 times in the Bible.
Right.
Unless you're born again, you cannot understand about God. God is present.
Have you been born
But,
again?
How sure are you that God is present? Because I'm so sure that mom is present.
Yes.
She gave birth to me and I'm here. I shake her hand, I talk to her, I hug her. But God, no one is ever sure. No one has ever seen him. So you can't be 100% sure and say, oh, my God is there and I believe in him and I'll serve him for the rest of my life. I find that a very weak stand.
And I think
What I can say is
there's this argument which is called a cosmological argument, where religious people try and say that we have to have come from somewhere. So like I came from my mother and I was in the womb.
Just come to think of it.
You know,
where did we come from? You know, if it's not
that's a very
extraordinary.
That's a very good question, and it's actually, human beings are always trying to understand how is everything working. I mean, it's not just about where we came from. Human beings have always tried to understand, why does the sun rise from the east to the, why does it rain, for example? And they have delved into these questions, sought answers, some for which we have found. For example, we now know why it rains. We know the whole process of how rainfall comes about. Now, with the question of God, what religious people are telling us is we must have come from somewhere. But then they go ahead and assign that somewhere or somewhere to some creator. And they call this creator a God. But if you ask them, where did God come from? Because that's the other problem. Because when you go through the cosmological argument,
who created God?
Who created God?
Yeah.
Are you also saying God was in a womb and he doesn't know where he came from?
Or he just appeared.
So those are what we call the logical fallacies. Yeah.
Okay, let's get to hear from. Let him prove his fact. Actually, today like I said earlier on, it's either you switch him to your end or he switches you to his end.
He's very likely.
Okay, what I can say, Linda, is this: I was born in 1987. But if you ask me who was the first president of Kenya, I can tell you clearly.
Yes.
Why? Because everything is documented. There are records. Even though I didn't see him, I can tell you for a fact that Kenyatta was the first president.
Absolutely.
Because of
It's in the history books.
It's in the history book.
Why is it
Therefore-
that you guys acknowledge the fact
No,
that
I was waiting for him to get to
finish
that
it?
point
All right.
because we need to see who has documented
All right.
with evidence that
Yes.
God actually existed. Was
When we look at the Bible, in fact, everything that he has said, why we have different denominations and everything, there's something that explains that. Already in the Bible, everything. Right now we have a country or a nation called Kenya. Already it was talked of before even it came about. When you look at, for example, when you look at the book of Isaiah chapter 34 verse 16, it says so clearly, yeah, that the Lord has spoken and he will gather everything together as the Bible talks
You know,
about.
as you say that,
Yes.
I look at her the
Yeah, I
facial
can't-
expression and I'm thinking, oh, like really? What are you saying?
Because
why
I-
is it that you're pulling that face?
I could just I was wanting to interject at some point
Yeah.
because he's talked of all these historical books
Yeah.
that have evidence, that have archaeological evidence of the existence of, for instance, the first president.
Yes.
We know where he was born, when he was born, the
Yeah.
mom is there, and it is there, it is a fact.
Yes.
About the Bible,
Yeah.
there's no way you can equate the Bible to any historical book. I'll tell you a
Or
reason.
not necessarily the Bible or any other.
Or any other of those holy books.
Yes,
There's
holy
a-
books.
because the Bible is just a book that is just full of fables that have no basis, and I find it very hard to get how human beings actually
you
find
see,
that very plausible.
have
In
you
my
ever read the
thinking,
Bible?
I'm
If
not
there's
trying
no
to overrule
archaeological
that.
evidence.
Let me just ask you that.
Yes.
Let me frame this question this way, in the simplest way possible. If we have this book, this particular one that is
Yes.
going, that is what my baby is going to read and all that, you know, and you do get facts. You know, we always say that if you have something that is archived somewhere that is going to create reference,
Yeah.
it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Then you as an atheist, what is it that you have to tell me that, okay, well, to confirm the fact that, well, atheism is the name of the game, and you know the reference, he would be strong enough because he has something to present. You are just
I
you
don't
were
need
just,
a
you
book.
know,
I don't need a Bible.
All right.
I was born a human being. Humanism and the values of this, the way I want to treat every other human being the same way I'd like them to treat me. I don't need any threats of retribution or hell or whatever, so that I don't kill you on the street. It is born in us. Every child right now, even a 2-year-old child, will tell you they know when they do something right and wrong. They are not religious at all. They don't understand, oh, these are the rules of God, these are the commandments. It is a basic, it is there in humanity. And that's why we're advocating for people to just go back to humanity, because actually the cancer that's ailing us is religion. That's why we're killing each other, because religion tells us to kill. If we didn't have any
Which
religion,
religion?
no one would be killing each other. We were born human beings.
Let me explain about the books. You're telling us to produce a book. Let me
I'm
tell
not telling you
that-
to produce a book. I'm just saying, if you want to convince Agdiva today, he's going to produce
that's
his
why I
Bible
was
and tell
drawing
you,
an
this is the
example
fact.
of
What are you
What
going
me-
to
What then
do?
he needs to do is
What I
start
was
with the
saying
book
is-
that was written by Charles Darwin's on evolution.
Yeah.
Read that book. It will dispel the whole idea of we came from Adam and Eve.
Why is it that
and-
Okay, let me say
you
this.
really think that this book could be right and
because
not?
it's based on scientific process of inquiry. So basically you have to appreciate, by the way, that today in the 21st century, the best way of acquiring knowledge, and it has been tested,
Yes, sir.
why you were injected with why you were injected when you were young with some vaccines is because science came to appreciate the value of those vaccines.
All right.
So what we're saying is to ignore science today as a way of understanding knowledge is to
Would
really
be.
ignore where we are in the 21st century as
It will be a
humanity.
slap in the
You
face,
see, it's a
technology and
of
everything.
progress even.
We
So
can't
what-
say, oh, we can't find a solution to this particular thing, so it must be supernatural.
Yeah.
That's why we are blocking research, and we'll never
We'll
find
never
out
move
stuff.
forward.
Okay.
And
Agdiva, what do you
therefore-
have to
and
say?
in terms of the book,
Yeah.
the Bible has the wrong stories in explaining serious questions of origin of life.
How
The-
wrong are they?
Can you draw out like one story?
Like the
All
story
the
of
Tell
Adam
me
and
this.
Eve
Okay, for example.
it only passes for a story. It doesn't pass for, you know, the evidence that we need for that story is overwhelming. For example, where is the Garden of Eden? Do we have any evidence that it was in this particular place?
Geographically,
Do we
no one can
have
prove it.
evidence that there was a fruit, a forbidden tree or whatever that is?
Don't we have
Do we
talking
have any-
serpents?
There
Go
is
there,
evidence.
they-
For
they-
example,
Talking
we don't have
serpents?
there is
sufficient
much
for
evidence.
that.
For
Listen,
example, when we talk about the Garden of Eden, there are 4 rivers being mentioned. Okay.
Euphrates, all right.
There are 4 rivers being mentioned. These rivers, we can find them physically even now.
How about the garden itself?
Yes, if these rivers can be found, then it means they're in the garden.
Where's the
that garden?
Where is
You
it?
see,
Where is
these
it?
rivers are.
There's no garden.
For example,
The point is-
rivers.
No, you need to
Let's
tell us.
listen to
He
him.
seems
Let's
to have
listen
found
to
the
his
garden.
yes.
Yes, if these rivers exist and they are being mentioned there, it means they are in, but it's not in the state that it was during the beginning. True. I want to draw an example from the book of Isaiah. For example, Isaiah lived 700 years before the coming of Christ, but he gave us a story perfectly of how it will happen 700 years before
How
the
what will
coming.
happen?
How Jesus will come.
Oh, Jesus is still coming.
He
All
gave
right,
us
wait a minute.
before the coming of Jesus. Isaiah narrated the whole story.
Uh-huh.
You're
Let me
getting
tell
the
you,
point?
Do you know, I knew when I was so saved,
Yes.
when I was a Christian.
Or you
Yeah.
were saved, like
I
born
was
again.
saved,
Like
I was born again, I was all
all
over
right?
the place.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that time my uncle came and told me, in the year 2000, Jesus is coming back.
All right.
And so I really believed. I believed Jesus is going to come through the clouds. I tried being good because I wanted him to find me on the right side. Of course, I was told.
Well, luckily you did not die. So I mean,
So, no, the
you would
point
have
is-
you would have kept your Christianity and see.
the point is, the whole idea of Jesus coming back, we should just forget about it as humanity.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
He's just in our heads.
It's just in our
Wait a
heads.
minute.
It's not
I
happening.
think we're going to jump here and here, here and here before we even get back to you and get to see here what you have to say. Let's talk about life after death. You're thinking about life after death because it looks like everything, the way we're living and all that, does not make much sense when we do our references in the religious and holy books. Then life after death. Imagine today you're dead. And even before we go to that, say you sleep, you fall down like we say, Jesus Christ, I'm God or something. What do you guys say?
Well, sometimes I of course swear.
You say God?
I say like,
I
Jesus, this happened.
I love that.
like
So
God.
that's the fact
It's
is
just an
acknowledging-
expression.
But it's an
It's
expression, and let me
just
tell
an
you.
expression.
it's an
Yeah,
expression.
oh my God, we say that all the
We
time.
say that all the time.
Pure
Just like
expression.
when you say guy, this happened.
Absolutely.
People say that every time.
Yeah.
It's not that mean that you believe in guy or God. And let me tell you, those are
that
just.
means you're not staying true to what you guys are preaching.
What
No,
you're
you
saying is,
can't.
we have, having come from a religious background,
All right, so you
we have what we call some of the
Habits.
things some habits that we've carried along into our position right now. Some maybe words which we used to utter that we find ourselves uttering, not because we believe in them, but it's just an instinct. But let me tell you another thing. The whole issue of life after
life
death.
after death, yes.
Is
What happens? You do not get prayers because your family members are going to be, say, born again. They're going to pray. We're not saying you're dying tomorrow.
I think
though.
we have to appreciate that nobody has ever died and, of course, resurrected. So we really don't know whether there's anything that happens to this body. We only know that it, of course, it degenerates. It goes through the process of what is it called? Decomposing and
Yes,
so
and
on.
all that, yeah.
This we know from how other animals decompose when they die. So we understand that we are also going to decompose. These are the concepts of the soul goes to heaven and
The spirit is
the spirit
separated.
goes I don't know where. Those ones we have no evidence for.
Haniva, we were hoping to hear
Aye.
from you.
At one point, I also had the same questions in my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful when I joined the theological school, I was trained faith life. And I can draw an example. One day, we were asked to go for a penniless trip to somewhere I didn't know, to Baringo. I had never been to Baringo. Then I asked
By
our
penniless,
lecturer,
you mean you're going without?
yeah, you are going without money.
All right.
You are going where you don't know. Then when I asked the lecturer, he told us, I want you to experience God.
God.
Rely on God and read the Bible.
All right.
When I went to open my Bible, the first verse that I opened, maybe I can read for you, the book of Acts, chapter 18, verse 10. I'll read for you so that you can understand.
Would you do that as he opens the Acts thing? Like, would you go for a penniless? And
This, the word that I got. Then spoke the Lord to Paul in the night by a vision. Be not afraid, but speak and hold not thy peace. For I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee. For I have much people in that city.
And then
Now,
you believed
this
that.
became a promise, and I took this as the word of God. And we started our journey to Baringo.
Baringo.
Yes. When we arrived in Baringo at around 4, the first people I met, I wanted to ask them, where is the nearest church from here? I would love to meet the pastor. It happened to be that they were pastors, those people, 4 of them. And they directed me to their bishop. So when we reached there, our mission was to invite the pastors and bishops from Baringo County to a conference that was to be held in Nairobi. It happened to be that they had called a meeting the following day for all the pastors and the bishops of that area. And this bishop we met is called Bishop Chamon. Can give a testimony. He took care of us. The 3 days we stayed in Baringo, everything. And the following day, let me finish.
Okay.
The following day, I addressed the gathering and I invited them. So through this word, everything happened exactly as this word is.
There is power in the word of God.
There is power in the word of God.
All
Let
right.
me also say that
Do you experience miracles?
And these are things
I got a promotion just last
the other
week.
day, all right.
And this is something that I had worked hard for. I tried to also canvass through my bosses, you know, at the office and see whether I could get this promotion. It eventually came. I also want to say that most of my projects which I'm doing are actually yielding a lot of fruit. There are so many good things happening in my life today.
And you're saying this is happening
and
without...
I cannot attribute that to a God.
And I'd also...
And I think there are good and bad things that happen in this world to
Absolutely.
everybody.
Yes.
What religious people do, they take the good things, and because of some coincidences in them, like, you know, if you happen to go to Baringo and some people happen to be there and you meet the people who you probably didn't expect to meet and they help you. If you walk on the street and let's say, you know, you walk through the road and a vehicle comes and instead of it hitting you, it maybe swerves just next to you. You'll say that it is God who, people like saying it's God who saved you from that. But I think the thing is, let's not attribute incidences in life that are just natural incidences.
One time, Linda.
Before we could get to the second testimony, I'd really like to get this straight. Yes. How did God manifest in your penniless trip in Baringo?
Exactly. Reaching town, I went to a petrol station and sat somewhere on a bench.
Yes.
There was a man seated next to me. I started talking to him. Then I witnessed to him about the gospel. When he heard of the gospel, he was so happy. And he wanted to listen more and more from me. Then he asked me, where are you going? I told him, I'm heading to Baringo. He told me he's a truck driver heading to Malaba. Therefore, he can drop me Nakuru.
And how is God coming in that? Because I'm seeing a fellow human being. I could do so the exact same thing as an atheist. I just need to speak out to any human being. That's why I'm telling you, these are natural instincts within human beings. There is no God.
Let me just give you the second testimony. Okay, just a minute. The second testimony. I also asked myself, why is it that we have Muslims and Christians and they differ? There's a time we were advertising for our conference, then we had issues with some youth from Madare. They were Muslims. That day I prayed and I told God, I will want to know what is written in the Quran and what makes Muslims differ from the Christians. I was in theological school at that time. When I went back to school, 3 days later, I found a Quran in the pit. Exactly how I had prayed, and the person we are with right now is a pastor.
I found that a very long route.
Briefly, please.
That person is a pastor in Homa Bay. He can testify of it. I told him, as in, I really want to get a Quran that is translated in Kiswahili. 3 days later, I found that Quran exactly translated in Kiswahili.
Do you also know that you can actually Google for that Quran and find it? You don't need a prayer in between being here and needing a Quran. You don't need any intervention of a God. That's why technology and things that have bases.
We want to try and see if God really...
What I'm saying...
There was no God involved. It's just a need he had, and he was working towards achieving it. And he did.
For example, just a minute. If we take maybe an example of the Kenyan political scenario, if you ask somebody from the opposition if he believes in the government, he will tell you he doesn't believe in the government.
Well,
that one does not nullify the fact that the government exists. It's
well,
the same case. What Mumia is saying, and they are saying they don't believe in God. They are not saying God doesn't exist.
No, God does not exist.
God
He actually
exists,
says
but
that
they don't believe in
100%.
him.
If he existed, then we'd believe.
For her case,
All
she
right.
wants proof.
Okay.
Walk with me, you'll see.
Well,
God.
unfortunately,
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately, I
I
think
need
this
to-
is a
I need to-
discussion
Because I've been
for
walking that
next
walk
week.
Walk with me.
Closing remarks?
Yes, closing remarks. Briefly, as we get to wind up, unfortunately.
No, I think for me it's very quick to just mention that the difficult questions that we are asking, where did we come from, what happens to us after we die, and so on, let us not look for answers that have existed over a period of time. Let us not attribute that to God. God is diminishing as an answer to the difficult questions. There are now better ways of explaining where we came from, and even if we do not know, God does not satisfy and fill that gap of the difficult questions.
That's his point. You got to know you as we get wind up.
I'd
please.
also like to kind of add on to what he said as my parting shot. You don't have to believe in something simply because it's widely believed or it's the norm if it does not satisfy your need for an answer.
Okay.
The belief in life after death, or in a deity, or in a creation story, or where I'm coming from, we still have time to find answers. That doesn't mean because right now we haven't found an answer, let me just believe this. Don't shortchange your imagination. There's still time to look for more stuff. If we find something that's viable, we can believe in it. But if something that does not satisfy your answer, your questioning, please just reject it. There's still time. You're not going anywhere, and you could just die and be dead.
only. All right, sorry, we've got 1 second.
What I can say is that God exists and is present before us. It's just that the human mind, because of the spirit of unbelief, cannot fathom what God is doing from the beginning to the end.
All right.
But God exists.
Well, quite an stable, of course, discussion there. And be sure to join me next week because we'll be having more of the same, and we just need to understand this whole story. Thank you so much for always keeping it Every TV. I'm Linda Alele Matambo. Until next time, bye-bye.